The New York Mets are an absolute wagon, and they cannot be stopped. For the second time this season, they have a winning streak of 6 games or more in the midst of a 7-game winning streak right now, and we are here to break it all down on today's edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Chris Schubert, Jack McKessie with you. Apologies for no episode after the Cardinals series. Just some time commitments got in the way, so a super duper mega episode recapping 2 series with the off day for the New York Mets, as they now have won 7 in a row. They have opened up the largest lead out of any division leader in baseball at 5 games. They're the only team in the National League East with a positive run differential. Oh, by the way, they have the best record in all of baseball. Oh, by the way, they have the best starters ERA in all of baseball. Oh, by the way, it's like 12 or 13 starts in a row where their starter hasn't given up a home run. Things are great in Mets land. Jack, how are you, my friend?
You said it, Chris. I mean, things could not be much better right now for the Mets with 7-game winning streak, including 3 in a row over the Philadelphia Phillies, who are their closest competition in the NL East right now. And I mean, the first perfect homestand of 7 or more games since 2015. And I don't know if you remember this, Chris, because it was 10 years ago now, but the Mets went to the World Series in 2015. So this is a really good start to the season.
Yeah, an excellent start to the season, an excellent start by players that we don't normally anticipate having good starts to the season. I'm sure we'll talk about Francisco Lindor here today on the pod. And, oh, yeah, they're doing all of this with Juan Soto not playing his best offensively, although did his best defensively in the last game of that Philly series. I'm sure we'll get to that here at some point. Let's do this in order. We'll go back to the Cardinals series, a 4-game sweep of the Cardinals. And what I found so important about this Cardinals series was that first game, Griffin Canning is on the mound, and it was really the first bit of, if you want to call it adversity, it's probably too strong of a word, but the first misstep that the Mets had faced this season. They lost the series to the Twins. For the first time all year, they had lost 2 in a row. They were dealing with injuries to Jose Siri and needing to use an opener and just finally needing to make roster moves. They were dealing with a lot. They were coming back home. They were facing the Cardinals, and they took care of business in the first game of this series. Mark Vientos hit his first home run of the season. Brett Beatty had an RBI hit. Francisco Lindor with an awesome heads-up play, coaching Tyrone Taylor on the base paths in the middle of a rundown, which was excellent. And the Mets pick up a win in the opener of this series. Again, their first bit of adversity that they faced, and they handled it really well, which I thought was a really nice sign for the mental makeup of this team, that they didn't get too low after, for the first time all season, losing back-to-back games.
I think the biggest point for me that this team was ready to kind of turn the page onto the next series and flush everything that happened over the Twin series was just Griffin Canning's start as a whole. 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, and the kind of depth that we had hoped to see from the starting pitching coming into the second half-ish of this 13-day stretch where they're playing a game every day. And after the weirdness of the bullpen game / opener / Justin Hagenman start into a homestand with 7 games against the Cardinals, who had entered red hot, 4 games against them and then 3 games against the Phillies, a division rival. You had to hope that they were going to flush everything that happened in Minnesota, and they did. And for Griffin Canning to go out and give you that depth, to me, was one of the biggest signs that, hey, we're ready to keep going. We're ready to start rolling again. And obviously, we can look now in hindsight and say, okay, yeah, they've won 7 in a row now. Things were off to a good start with that first Cardinals game.
Yeah, I think a great point by you. The Cardinals had come into that series. Brandon Donovan was the best hitter in the National League. They, as an offense, were putting up some incredible numbers. They just weren't necessarily getting the starting pitching, and the Mets just handled their business. The second game of this series, the Mets win 5-4, a walk-off for the New York Mets. This was the second straight day that Mark Vientos hit a home run, so you started to see him heat up a little bit. Beatty in this series really started to get going. Luis Torrens continues to just be awesome. Max Kranick was awesome in this game in relief, and the Mets were able to walk it off after, let's face it, a 9th inning that got a little sideways for the Mets. Huascar Brazoban in the game allows Brandon Donovan to tie it, but really kudos to Brazoban for settling down after the home run to get the following 3 outs to set up for the walk-off for the New York Mets, and another solid start from David Peterson. And at that point, the Mets had won the first 2 games of this series.
I don't have much to add there. It felt like after the first game, I had written in my notes, it kind of feels like some of the guys are getting close to breaking out. Beatty had multiple hits in that first game. Lindor went 3 for 3. Tyrone Taylor was hitting the ball hard. Vientos had that opposite field homer in the first game of the series. And then another home run from Vientos in this game. I wrote for earlier in the second game of the series, ironically, Lindor continues to get under the ball, still just 1 home run on the year. And then he absolutely ripped the cover off of the ball on a second deck walk-off. Kind of just the perfect capper to a up and down game, a back and forth game. And for Braziman to settle down in the ninth, like you mentioned, and have Lindor have that moment, it just kind of felt like the momentum was really picking up after a really nice game 1 and a almost euphoric ending to a game 2.
The Mets played a nationally televised game the next day, and it was just the national television emergence of Kodai Senga as the ace of the New York Mets pitching staff. After 7 scoreless innings out in Sacramento against the A's, he followed it up with 5 2/3 scoreless here against the St. Louis Cardinals. He's up to like 18 2/3, 19 innings scoreless. He has been absolutely excellent. A sub-1 ERA. I think his ERA is sitting at 0.79. I at one point wrote down in my notes, Kodai bleeping Senga. That literally, I wrote the word bleeping. Like he was just excellent. Once again, he's been excellent really since the first start of the season. And he wasn't even bad in his opening start of the 2025 season, but has just been so solid lately. This game had a Juan Soto RBI hit. It had Pete Alonso with an RBI double. It had Pete Alonso with the insurance home run that I'm not sure if it still has landed. And the Mets just continue to do. The Mets have a recipe. And let's have a formula. They are going to get excellent starting pitching, whether it's 5, 6, 7 innings. They just are going to be in the game into the 6th and 7th. Their bullpen has been great. And their offense, it is sluggish at times. Pete hasn't been sluggish. Lindor has turned it around. Vientos seems to be hot, although he got hurt in this game, and we only saw him return last night for the New York Mets. But just everything, they have a recipe, they have a formula, and it is working for them. I do have some concerns about the formula going forward because of how much they're asking the bullpen to do. And I think you saw some early signs of that in the Philly series, even though it didn't come back to directly haunt them. But the Mets win this game 3-0 behind a really good day for Pete Alonso and Kodai Senga being Kodai Senga.
Yeah, I really liked, and we were talking about this, Chris, maybe last episode, definitely in between episodes, we were texting. The fact that Kodai Senga now is really focusing on throwing strikes and letting balls get put in play and letting his fielders work behind him, that is becoming a formula for his success. So you talked about the scoreless inning streak that he's on to kind of start the year. And if he's able to keep pitching to contact like this, eventually you think that the fork ball is going to get working. He's going to be able to start picking up more strikeouts. The strikeout numbers aren't there right now, but if he keeps piling up outs, if he keeps getting some depth, he went 5 2/3 in this game. And if he keeps going scoreless, like that's a recipe for success. I also wrote down Pete Alonso after this game had the highest OPS ever by a Met through the first 21 games of a season, which is just absurd and kind of a testament to the tear he's been on. And then one thing I really liked about this game was a illustration of something we've talked about multiple times before. And that's Carlos Mendoza's feel for his bullpen and when to use the hook on a reliever. And we have issues with when he uses the hook on starters and how it might take him a little while.
Yeah.
But in this game, he let AJ Minter work through an 8th inning that he was clearly struggling a little bit through. His command wasn't always there. He walked a couple of guys, ended up with a bases loaded situation in the 8th inning in a tight game. And he ends up getting a couple of ground outs to get out of it. And everything ended up working out for Diaz in the 9th inning. Like, seems like he's also turning things around a little bit. So,
well, that you thought that when this game happened. But
my thoughts when this game happened, exactly. But to have Mendoza stick with Minter in that situation helps boost a guy's confidence, I think, and it really shows the managerial feel that he has for getting through a game like this with the ups and downs of the game the day before, and then into the third game of the series, pulling out the win, and everything worked out well.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out because I have in my notes here. I wrote down a note in the 8th inning. Minter in trouble. Are we sounding the trumpets? I was wondering if it was one of those nights where they were going to ask for a multi-out save from Edwin Diaz. And then my next note written here is Minter gets out of trouble. Some help from Lindor with the glove. And Lindor's defense has been somewhat of a conversation point at at times with some of the errors that he has racked up, but his defense was on point in this Cardinal series and especially in the Philly series as well. But yeah, Minter was able to work himself in and out of that trouble on Saturday. Then it was Sunday, and it was Clay Holmes Day, and Clay Holmes once again continues to be awesome, and now he's giving the Mets length. It was 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. His ERA is 3.16, and I wrote this down at the time, and I'll just share the last time out. So after Holmes made that start on Sunday, the last time out, Clay Holmes finished that start. His ERA was 3.16. Senga, his ERA was 0.79. Peterson, his ERA was 3.27. Griffin Canning's ERA was 3.40. Tyler McGill's ERA was 1.40. That was after the Cardinal series. That's how good these guys have been pitching-wise. And the thing that's going to take them over the top is the ability to get length, because only 2 of those guys their last time out, again, when this Clay Holmes start happened, only 2 of them had gone 6 innings. It was Canning and Holmes. They just need to find that length a little bit more regularly. Senga gave you 7 in Sacramento. You want to see that more often. Holmes being 6 on the regular, I think, is fine. Same thing with Canning. It is Peterson, it's McGill, it's Senga, I think, are the guys that you look at and you go, those are the guys that can take a game into the 7th inning. McGill, his issue, and we'll talk about him at some point here when we get to the Philly series, is the walks. Yeah. That's what does him in. And the same thing with Holmes. He's geared that back, only had 2 in the start. No surprise, he's able to go 6 innings. And the Mets win this one, and it's a series where everybody contributes, right? Lindor, 7 hits in the Cardinals series, 2 home runs, 2 RBIs. Soto has 5 hits in this series, 5 RBIs, including his first 3 RBI game as a Met. Alonso, 4 hits, a home run, 3 RBI. So the top of the lineup does the damage. It's Brendan Nimmo who comes through with a big hit for the Mets in the 7th, and then they break it open in the 8th with a Taylor insurance run and then a Soto RBI double. But it's the fundamentals, man. They pitch well. The bullpen's great. The defense comes through with big plays. They had a great play by Lindor to help Holmes get out of a jam in the 5th. Yep. They turned double plays. They did a couple of that of really good double play turns in the Philly series that I'm sure we'll get to. And yeah, I mean, just the Mets, just they're a wagon right now. And this Cardinal series was the start of what we have seen over the last 7 games.
Yeah, it was nice to see some of the offense start to wake up a little bit. The thing that I wrote down here, and I believe I got this from the broadcast, so this is at the time, this was Sunday, the Cardinal series finale. The starting pitching ERA was the best in the National League at the time. I believe it still is.
Yes, it is.
But out of 15 National League teams, starting pitchers were, for the Mets, were 11th in innings pitched. And so that just is kind of the story of what the season has been so far, is we're getting really nice starts in terms of runs allowed and the lack thereof by Mets starting pitchers. The depth is just not there yet. And what concerns me, because we'll get to it in the Philly series, there wasn't a ton of depth there either. What concerns me is when we get into the stretch of the summer months and it's hot and your starters aren't going as deep into games and you're leaning more heavily on a bullpen, including a couple of guys that can give you multiple innings. Eventually, that's going to catch up to you. When the inning pitch counter rises for relievers, it takes a toll a lot heavier than it does on your starters. And I just worry that because of the lack of depth that the starters are giving so far, that this bullpen, which has been so good, so elite, is going to start having some more slip-ups and start showing its cracks once the real middle dog days of the season, dog days of the summer start picking up.
I'm so glad you said that, because that was exactly what we saw in the first game of this Phillies series. The Mets winners of 4 in a row going into this Philly series. And, you know, I had, obviously we look at the calendar, we see who's coming up for the Mets. We're going to talk about Washington here at the end of the show. But I saw Philly on the calendar, and I wasn't like, obviously when you play an NL East foe, I think you get a little bit more anxious. You get a little bit more excited for these games. But again, it's April. I wasn't going to, cry foul if they lost 2 out of 3 to Philly. They were winners of 4 in a row coming into this game. They were playing their best baseball. But I use my dad as a gauge on this because he is very casual Mets fan, right? He's a diehard. He watches every day, but he's not, consuming media all the time and is in the weeds on stats the way we are here on the podcast. He's just casually watches the games. He's texting me his thoughts throughout the game. And all last week, before the Cardinal series, during the Cardinal series, he was like, I want Philly. He's like, they got to do well against Philly. Like, I've been waiting for this series all season. And I'm like, dude, it's April, man. Like, if they lose 2 out of 3, you're going to tell me the season's over? And so he's my gauge on this. So he was super amped up. And I was like, man, it's a series. It is what it is. And I was like, they're playing well going into the series. So it's fine. They have a lead. They are atop the NL East. They're playing great baseball. Like, it's going to happen. The Phillies are a good team. They're going to beat you sometimes. Well, in the opener of this series, that was not the case because Tyler McGill tied a career high with 10 strikeouts, only gave the Mets 5 1/3. Francisco Lindor has a 2-home run game, and the Mets hold on. They hold on to beat the Philadelphia Phillies. And the story from this game is probably Tyler McGill not giving the Mets enough length. And in this midst of all these games in a row, the bullpen was taxed. They asked Max Kranick, who has been awesome all season, to give them some length to get a bunch of innings. And it all fell apart there in the ninth. They had to get Diaz up and warm. They then had to use him, and then they give up the 3-run home run. And it just, they hold on. They win the opener of this series. But this is, I think, what we are talking about when you're not getting length from your starters on a regular basis, and you've got to use Max Kranick all the time for multiple innings. Or more importantly, you're using Minter and Garrett and Stanek and Diaz. You then look to Brazoban and Budo and Kranick more to try to bridge that gap and give you multiple innings because you don't have certain guys available. And a game that should have been on cruise control, the Mets should have not even needed to even think about using Edwin Diaz. He has to come into the game. He gives up a home run. And then we'll talk about one leg being longer than the other and a hip cramp. We'll get to that at some point. But they have to use him in a game that they probably should not have even needed to think about. They do. They win the game, but yeah, a concern that the bullpen was taxed to the point where they gave it up.
It really all goes back to, I feel like, the starting pitching and the lack of depth, because you look at the box score and you see, oh my gosh, Miguel had 10 strikeouts, only 1 hit allowed, and gave up no runs. But then you realize he only pitched 5 1/3 innings because he reached a pitch count limit in the 6th. He got a pop out. He had allowed 1 hit. It was a bloop single from Bryson Stott. Then he walks the next 2 guys and ends up getting out of the inning.
It was the 3rd inning. The 3rd inning is where it went sideways for him because the 1st inning was fine. He struck out the side in the 2nd. I literally wrote the pitching lab is a problem, but not for the Mets. Like, that's how good he was through the first 2 innings. And then the 3rd inning, I wrote down, this is the Tyler McGill experience in a nutshell, because he worked himself into a jam. Again, didn't get 1 hit allowed in the game, 4 walks. I mean, it was self-inflicted wounds, but then he works himself out of it. But the 3rd inning is over and he's thrown 62 pitches. And you're sitting back and you're doing the math. You're like, how's he getting to 6 innings? Because that's probably the tent pole that you want your starter to reach in today's game. If you can get to 6 innings, I feel okay about getting the final 9 outs every single night. But the Mets just struggle to get to that number on a regular basis. And McGill, he's a strikeout heavy guy because how good his stuff is. So if he's going to walk guys plus get the 10 strikeouts, it's just going to drive up his pitch count. And listen, he's been great. He's awesome. He's got like a sub 1.5 ERA. I'm not complaining. But if the Mets want to reach that next level, and when Sean Manaea comes back, I think it'll help. When Frankie Montas comes back, I think it's going to help because they're going to have depth. They can maybe skip guys and really give themselves some options. But they just need some length from their starters on a regular basis. And that's the one thing I think that's stopping Tyler McGill from entering a different conversation in the National League of this is one of the best pitchers in the National League. The thing that's stopping him from getting there is he just can't take the ball deep into games on a regular enough basis.
Yeah, and it showed with the bullpen crisis that you mentioned, right? Kranick comes up, he has a 1-2-3 inning to start, but then they have to push him to a 2nd inning because of the lack of depth from the starter, and you want to try to save Diaz because it's the start of the series, and things don't work out. He starts getting hard hit. He starts giving up hard hit balls, has to get pulled. Diaz has to scramble in, and all of a sudden it's a close game, and we don't know what's going to happen. So luckily, like you said, the Mets held on for the win. Started the series off on a decent note, but it got a little shaky there at some points.
Well, and also, luckily for the New York Mets, Francisco Lindor plays shortstop for them, and he's awesome. And through his first 24 games of the season, Francisco Lindor is hitting .309. And I looked at his numbers through March and April the last couple of years. Actually, every year that he has been with the New York Mets. 182 average in his first season in 21, a 282 average in 2022. A 218 average in 2023, a 197 average in 2024. Francisco Lindor is having the best start of his career in a Mets uniform. Like, we've never seen this version of Francisco Lindor. And the thing that has always stopped him from getting the MVP love is the slow starts.
I mean, he's been an all-star.
He's hitting .309.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
He's hitting over 300 to start the season. And you know that when the months get warmer, that also coincides with Francisco Lindor getting hot. And if this isn't hot and he's going to get hot, what's that going to look like?
I'm excited to see because he looks locked in right now with these leadoff home runs that he's hitting, the walk-off that he had.
Yep.
It's fun to watch. His defense has, like we talked about, looked better than some of the struggles, in Sacramento, and the 0 for 12 start that he had to start the season. Like, we're past all that. We're past the Lindor has a slow start of the year, and we just have to expect that. Like, he is on another level right now, and to have him at the top and Pete in the 3 spot, if they can just get Soto to turn things around, I'm going to feel a lot better about the offense right now.
Yeah, and Mark Vientos looks like he's turning a corner as well.
That's
He
true.
came back the last 2 games of this Philly series and was really good. Let's get into the second game. The Mets win that one 5-1. Another great start from Griffin Canning. He gives the Mets, let me get the final line here. It's 5 innings, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. Again, you'd like to see the length from Griffin Canning, but of the 5 guys of the rotation, I think I'm okay with Griffin Canning only going 5 or 6 because he felt like the biggest project out of any of these guys. So for him to have the success that he is having is really, really encouraging. And the Mets got to the Phillies bullpen. They rallied late with the insurance runs. It felt like I was watching the NLDS all over again with what they were doing to the Philadelphia Phillies. A close game in the latter stages, and the Mets get to the bullpen with timely hitting, and it is the usual suspects. It is Pete Alonso, it's Luis Torrens, and that's a weird thing to say that Luis Torrens is a usual suspect when it comes to the Mets offense, but he is.
Yeah.
Pete with an RBI double, Luis Torrens with a 2-out hit as well to break it open to 5-1
on an 0-2 count. It was very impressive.
And again, if you want one, there was. I said when we started the series recap that I was excited for this series, but I didn't think it was like a must-have. There was a moment where everything changed for me. There was a moment where I wanted the Phillies. Like, I wanted them, and I wanted to bury them, and I wanted to make the Phillies fans, I wanted them to squirm, okay?
I think I know this
moment. The moment that this play happened, I was like, you need to bury this team right now because they are never going to recover from this. Because Kyle Schwarber made one of the most boneheaded plays I've ever seen a player make. It is 5-1, and he gets doubled up on a ball literally in front of him to center field. He takes too far of a lead, and Tyrone Taylor with an excellent throw, and Schwarber has to basically try to tackle Pete to get back to the base. It was in that moment where I was like, oh, you know what? Go for the sweep tomorrow. I want them. Because if these are the types of plays that they're making now, if you sweep them, they are in their own head. And that was where the switch flipped for me, where I'm like, I know it's April. I know these games, they matter, but they don't really matter. Like, let's get to August and September. I wanted the Phillies after Tyrone Taylor doubled up Kyle Schwarber. I wanted the sweep badly.
I mean, you have to remember this is a Phillies team that entered this series. The last time they had played the Mets was in the NLDS with Lindor hitting a grand slam at Citi Field. The Phillies, I think the Mets are in their head right now.
Oh, they're so in their head. So in their head.
It's April. Like, I don't want to have a moment like a WFAN radio host saying that the season's over because the Mets have a 5-game lead in April. But I mean, that Schwarber play, we'll talk about the Castellanos throwout at home. Like, some of the plays that the Mets have made defensively and some of the mistakes that the Phillies have made, it feels good to be a Mets fan right now, and it's not a feeling that I'm used to having.
How about watching the opposing manager not get a challenge in time? Like, that's like
that too.
Like, that's
right.
that. Like, they are just flustered right now. And honestly, I'm enjoying every minute of it. I said at the top, the Mets are a wagon, and they're a wagon that just ran over the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah. One real quick, another thing that I really liked about this game in particular was the at-bats are starting to look a lot better, even if they're not getting all the results, which they obviously started to. They scored 5 runs. But to be able to get to Christopher Sanchez, where he's only able to throw 2 innings because you're just working counts, you're getting walks, you're getting on base, like, that's the kind of stuff that we had seen from the Mets in like 2022, some of the later parts of last year, where you're forcing the Phillies to turn to their much weaker pitching part of their pitching staff, which is their bullpen. And you're able to jump on top of it with Pete Alonso with that double with 2 outs, Luis Torrens with an 0-2 count, scoring a couple of guys. Like, that's the sort of stuff that when teams start to slip and you see a crack, you punch it and you punish them and you keep your foot on the gas. And that's what the Mets did in the second game of the series. They took the series win. Now they wanted to go for the sweep the next day.
And you knew it was going to be difficult because Zach Wheeler was pitching the finale, and that's one of the best
Exactly.
pitchers in the National League. And so you knew it was up for a tall task. But 2 at-bats that I think point out exactly what you're saying. And then Sanchez left after 2 innings. He had thrown 60 pitches, but also he left because he had, I think they called it forearm soreness, which is never good. But you could tell he was fighting it through those first 2 innings. Vientos had a really good at-bat in the first that led to the RBI hit that opened the scoring for the Mets. And then after that, it didn't lead to anything. But Marte And Starling Marte, I go through roller coaster with him of loving him and then him having like the worst at bats of all time.
We'll talk about loving
And
him again
and
soon.
we were trending towards an at bat that's everything I hate about Starling Marte is he just starts a count 0-2 with taking a pitch and then making one of the worst swing decisions of all time. But then he battles back from 0-2 to draw a 2-out walk, a full count walk, and works all the way back and makes Sanchez throw extra pitches with 2 outs. Again, it didn't directly lead to a run, but you drive up a pitcher's pitch count. And then one other thing I want to mention. The defense for the Mets has been really good, and that's a David Stern specialty. He prioritizes defense, but there were 2 plays in this game that I really want to highlight. Vientos in the second inning made a really nice scoop play and threw a ball that Pete had to dig out of the ground, but Vientos knew he was dealing with a fast runner and got rid of the ball really quickly. I thought that was a really nice play. And then there was in the 6th inning, they turned a double play. Vientos to Acuna to Alonso, where Acuna threw the ball while he was like falling forward in midair and threw just a bullet to Pete. You're just getting incredible defense from this team across the board. Tyrone Taylor with the play in this game as well to throw out Schwarber. I mean, their defense has been good. We'll talk about Juan Soto and his defense in the final game of this series because the Mets did pull off the sweep. They beat the Phillies 4-3. What of this game do you want to talk about? There's so many different layers to just this game in particular.
Can we talk about the Brett Beatty? Can I say piss missile on this podcast?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Brett Beatty smoked the ball into orbit off of Zach Wheeler. And that was all of the talk about Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez are set to come back this Friday against the Nationals. You think about what kind of roster decision the Mets have to make with Azokar in the outfield as one of your depth pieces, and then the platoon between Luis Angel Acuna and Brett Beatty. It looked like it had been Acuna's, right? He had been on that 9-game hit streak at the end of the Cardinals series. He's been working counts. He's been looking really good at the plate. And then all of a sudden, Brett Beatty gets to Zach Wheeler with an absolute nuke off of like you said, one of the best pitchers in the National League. And shout out to Gary Cohen with his moment of clairvoyance again here.
Twice.
Because,
he did it twice in this series. The Lindor, Kenny hit a home run in the middle of the game, preceded by just an absolute rocket to center field.
Preceded by, 9 of the 13 runs that Wheeler's allowed this season have come off the long ball. And Beatty smokes one deep to right field. Unreal.
Insane.
We've been waiting for Beatty to break out. We had said that in the Cardinals series, he'd started to look like he was turning a corner because of some multi-hit games. He'd been hitting for power a little bit. He had a double earlier. And then to hit this home run has got to feel like a huge weight off his shoulders. And he knows now that he's making the roster personnel decision a lot harder on David Stearns when Jeff McNeil comes back from the IL.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because Alvarez and McNeil are expected to be activated ahead of this Washington series. So we'll talk about what the roster moves need to be there. I unfortunately, I think it's pretty obvious the 2 players that would get sent down, but maybe the Mets have a surprise up their sleeve. What do we talk about here first? Do we talk about the throw out by Juan Soto at the plate? Do we talk about the balk that wasn't a balk in extra innings? What do you want to? Diaz leaving the game with a hip cramp. Like, what do we do here? Like, what do we do with this game?
I think we should probably chronologically go. And
okay, so I'll let you do this because I was in the middle of the day job, so I was kind of checking in and out of the game. I saw all the important stuff. So if you want to go in the correct order here, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the top of the 8th inning. The game is now tied because of a solid 4th inning from the Phillies, and so it's 4-4. Top of the 8th, and with a couple outs and a 2-2 count to Max Kepler, he hits a ground ball to right field, and you think, the Phillies are going to be able to tie this game. They had a runner in scoring position. Nick Castellanos rounds third. He's coming home, and Juan Soto, who we have been told by many,
I have been told does not play good defense.
Throws a bullet on a line to Sanger at home plate, and Sanger to be like Soto has the highlight because he had the throw because of his arm,
but Sanger getting the tag in is incredible.
Hayden Sanger with the put out on this one because
it's incredible.
He dives across the plate head first to block Castellanos coming through with a foot first slide. So he dives into Castellanos' midsection, gets the out, and then more chaos ensues when Rob Thompson is unable to challenge the play at the plate because he takes 20 seconds after a limit of 15. But absolute chaos. The Mets are able to hold on to the tie going into the bottom of the 8th, but just an all around, like, mind-boggling, stunning play from Soto and Sanger as a tandem. It was just beautiful defense. And you mentioned how good the defense has been. I mean, this is just another example.
It reminded me of the Luis Torrens play. It was
Yes.
a different play, but where Torrens
In London.
It was no from this year, the
Oh,
Marlins
from this
series.
year.
The Marlins series where he barely touches.
Oh, yes,
I forget
yes,
who it
yes.
was. I think it was Xavier Edwards, where
Yeah.
he barely gets it in time, and the Mets challenge the play, and they get the call. And I was like, "There's no way that we don't get these calls. Like, it's just not how it works." And they
Right.
got the call because he got the tag in, and it was one of those close plays where he fielded the ball and just kind of dove across and was able to make the tag. But yeah, incredible play there. From Soto, from Sanger. And then we get into extra innings, and it's 2-2 in the top of the 10th. And then we get the balk that's not a balk, the third disengagement that the Mets get bailed out on. And again, Phillies losing their minds over this. I mean, they are just scrambling as a franchise right now.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, if you are the road team in extra innings, you have to get two. Like that is just because it is so easy to respond and get the one back immediately because you got a runner at second base. You have to score twice and take a 2-run lead if you want to take the advantage back in extra innings. And the Phillies didn't do that. It was 3-2, and then surprise, surprise, Pete Alonso ties the game. And then this is actually a surprise. Starling Marte is the guy who delivers the walk-off hit as the Mets complete the 3-game sweep of the Philadelphia Phillies to win their 7th in a row, to be 18-7, the best record in all of baseball, and to open up a 5-game lead in the National League East.
It's just crazy. I also want to talk about the bottom of the 9th inning because Marte and Taylor got out pretty much immediately, and then Luis Angel Acuna had another really nice at-bat, 5 pitches, ends up getting a ground ball up the middle, gets on base with 2 outs, and then Luis Torrens, again on an 0-2 count, is able to chase the ball outside the zone, put it in play, and get on base, get a runner in scoring position with 2 outs for the top of the lineup. Lindor obviously unable to execute in this moment, but we can forgive him for that considering everything else going on. But to have the weird chaos with Diaz getting injured maybe, and then Kranick coming out and somehow keeping that a 1-score game.
Yeah, great job by Max Kranick.
With bases loaded and 2 outs, like
and a great response to what happened the last time he was out, right?
Yes, exactly.
Monday was a tough night for him. To respond in that spot for the Mets to keep it at 3-2, I thought was an excellent job by Kranick.
And then for Alonso to be able to get the bat on a ball on 0-2 and drive it to the opposite field, like we've talked about it a lot. Like I was totally wrong about Alonso this season. His approach at the plate looks completely different. He looks like the best version of himself right now. And the fact that he's not chasing as much on these down and out sliders or these up and in sinkers, the fact that he's making contact, driving the ball, he's not home run or bust. He's fine hitting the ball into the gap and getting a double like he did in this game. And obviously the guy hustles, right? We're never going to accuse him. He's not the fastest guy, but when Marte puts that ball in play, he was on his horse and he was able to get in. And like you said, it's a sweep. It's the Mets have the 5-game lead in the NL East. It's 7 games in a row at home. It's a good time to be a Mets fan right now.
Their record is 11-1, 12-1 at home. It's the best start at home in franchise history. I mean, they've just been excellent. I mean, we can nitpick, and that's what we do here on the pod. We say the starters got to give more length. Carlos Mendoza has to manage that a little bit better. There are things to nitpick. Juan Soto's off to a slow start. I mean, listen, there are reasons to be like, okay, are they going to be able to sustain this? But you look at the pitching lab just continues to just be awesome. For 2 straight seasons, it's just been awesome. Francisco Lindor off to a great start. Pete Alonso off to a great start. Like, Nimmo and Soto haven't really done a whole lot. Vientos hasn't done a whole lot. That's the thing that encourages me the most about this feature. And they're about to get reinforcements because Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil are likely to be activated. Is it fair to assume that you agree with me that the 2 players that are going to be sent down in this are Hayden Senger and Jose Azocar?
I think so. The only permutation here or I don't even know if that's the right word. The only thing in this situation that makes me think it could be someone other than Azocar, like maybe Brett Beatty, is I think Beatty has an option, whereas for Azocar, they'd have to DFA him and hope that he clears waivers. So
Brett Beatty just hit a ball.
I know, so I feel like Beatty has to stay on the roster, but it's just kind of a matter of Jeff McNeil's coming up. We don't really know how much Beatty's going to be able to get playing time now because you think Luis Angel Acuna is the more defensive replacement at second.
Okay. I have a pathway here because I want to talk about this.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to pull up the numbers here. I'm going to do this on the fly here, which is always great podcasting. I'm always doing it. This is always fantastic. But it was bad during the Philly series. I want to see where it is at the end. So the Mets have played 25 games. I'm going to give you a slash line. And it's kind of a trick question, but I'm going to give you a slash on, and I want you to tell me who it is.
Okay.
25 games, a 200 average, a 282 on base percentage, a 378 slugging, an 84 WRC plus, 2 home runs, 14 RBIs. It's a trick question.
I have no idea.
That is the combined numbers of everybody who has played DH for the New York Mets this season. That is what the DH position is outputting for this team. So you want a pathway to maybe keep Brett Baty on this team? Could you give him some starts at DH and let Winker be in the field if you want to give somebody a day off? Or do you sit Winker down for a little bit and let Baty get some run? It does give Carlos Mendoza, it makes his job a little bit more difficult because you have to manage more guys, but I can see a pathway where they need more production out of the DH spot. They're an 84 WRC plus. Like Winker hit a home run, what was it, the other night? And it was only the second home run. That's home run number 2 from the DH spot. Like they have not gotten a ton of production from the DH this season, and they're going to need to get more offense than what they're getting. And so I wonder if that is one pathway for them to keep Brett Baty up here, because you're not going to keep up Asokar and DH him.
Yeah.
Acuna is probably going to get center field time anyway once McNeil is up, because you can't not play him. He's been awesome.
McNeil's been playing center field during this rehab assignment. So
there's pathways.
There are different pathways. Another one that I was considering was, while you were talking, was maybe you have Baty start some games at third base and let Vientos DH, or
you could do that too.
We didn't mention him specifically, but Brett Baty had some really nice defensive plays throughout these last 2 series playing third base, and it's clear like when he's back out there at his natural position, like that the comfort is obvious, and I wouldn't hate to see him play a little bit more defense. Maybe he's a defensive replacement at third base. Luis Angel Acuna take second base. I don't know. There are definitely combinations to get both of them at bats. So I think Asokar and Senger are probably the ones getting sent down.
Senger for sure. I mean, that's easy. It's just what they do with the position player, whether it's Asokar or whether it is Baty, because I don't think they send down Acuna. But isn't this the most David Stearns thing of all time? I have a bunch of guys that can be in different spots, and my manager can just deploy them at will, and I don't lock anybody into a position other than like Soto and Lindor and Alonso, and then we just figure it out every single day. Yep. And the reason why you're okay with that is because you just trust Carlos Mendoza to make the right decision. You know, Carlos joked after the game yesterday about what they were going to do. And he's like, yeah, I got to go talk to David. Like, we got to go have that conversation. And it's very collaborative. Everybody's on the same page, and they seem to always make the right decisions here. And it's because the process is so good. And now they'll try to go for 8 in a row. They'll try the
vibes are immaculate right now.
Immaculate. I mean, I don't want to say these vibes are better than the vibes in 2024 when they were going on that run in the second half, but I mean, they're 18-7. They're the best team in baseball. Like,
It's shades of the latter parts of 2024. Yes. It reminds me a lot of the early season in 2022 when they went on that long stretch of winning series after series after series. Like,
but that didn't end well. 2022 didn't end well. So I would rather not.
And more players are similar to 2024 than 2022. So we'll stick with the late stages of 2024. It has that same feeling where they're able to battle back. It doesn't feel like the end of the game when the other team is able to come back after you're up 2-0 and all of a sudden it's tied, they take the lead and the game's over. No, this is a team that's battling back and coming through in the clutch when it matters.
A 4-game series coming up, a wraparound series with the Washington Nationals. It'll be Kodai Senga against Jake Irvin in the opener tomorrow on Friday. Clay Holmes against Brad Lord on Saturday. Tyler McGill against Mitchell Parker on Sunday. And then on Monday, Griffin Canning against old friend Trevor Williams. So that's it. The Mets will play the Nationals for the first time this season. They'll do so down in Washington. Like, it's not a good Washington team. 3 out of 4 should be on the table. Like,
I think the 2 keys to Washington are, 1, get to the bullpen. Their starting pitching has been decent, but their bullpen is, I think, the worst in the National League.
I can probably tell you that. Yeah, I can probably tell you that.
And the Cubs are also pretty bad. But we'll get to that in a little bit. The other key is getting out James Wood, because he is where the Yankees of 2024 and kind of 2025 only had Aaron Judge as their dangerous hitter. Like, James Wood is the clear guy in this lineup. He has opposite field power. He's starting to pull the ball for 500-foot home runs. Like, that's going to be the guy that the Mets need to get out or avoid having come up with guys on base.
Washington, the worst bullpen ERA in all of baseball, a 6.96 ERA.
Yeah. So get to that bullpen.
Number
And
2, the Philadelphia Phillies at 5.96. So you just saw what you were able to do against the bullpen that was number 2. What
you said
can you do?
no matchup with Mackenzie Gore, who's their best starting pitcher?
Yep, you avoid Mackenzie Gore in this series. It is Jake Irvin, Brad Lord, Mitchell Parker, and then Trevor Williams are the 4 guys. And the Mets they throw their best, right? Kodai Senga's going. Clay Holmes is in this series. Tyler McGill's in this series. I mean, this is the Mets, the best of the best over the next 3 days. I mean, Senga, Holmes, McGill, you would say are the top 3 pitchers. No disrespect to David Peterson. You could throw him in there as well. But I'd much rather have David Peterson throw the opener against Arizona on Tuesday, right? I mean, I feel much better about that because that Arizona team, I pay attention to them very closely because it's what I do for the day job is covering the teams in Arizona. And they're a team to pay attention to. They're gonna be a tough out when the Mets play them next week. So
absolutely,
you got to get fat on the part of the schedule that you can. And these next 4 games against Washington are a huge opportunity for the New York Mets, who once again have won 7 in a row. They have a 5-game lead in the National League East. They have the best record in baseball. Francisco Lindor is hitting over 300. Pete Alonso continues to be awesome. I'm going to steal your phrase. The vibe's immaculate right now. The Mets are a wagon. They're just running teams over.
And
they
Soto's still not even hot.
It's insane to think that this team is doing this well, and Juan Soto is providing good value defensively. And I loved what he said after the game. Like, listen, I'm not hitting, but that doesn't mean I still can't impact the game with my fielding, with my defense. And like, it's those types of comments that make you know he's going to break out. He's fine. The breakout is coming, and when it does, look out everybody else in the National League.
And even when he's not broken out, like he's still hitting doubles into the gap, like he's still driving the ball when he can. Like it's coming, guys. Like it's gonna happen.
We would describe this as struggling. A 115 WRC plus.
Right. I think I looked it up. It was a 116 OPS plus. Like he is still a above league average hitter right now, and he's not driving the ball. He's not hitting the way we expected yet.
He's
3
home
getting
runs.
On base. He's taking his walks. Like
364 on base percentage so far.
Not worried.
Not worried at all. No, not worried at all. And again, once the breakout happens, that WRC plus is going to fly up the charts. But that's going to do it for us here on this mega edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast, breaking down 2 series as the Mets just continue to roll 7 in a row. Things are great. And let's face it, they're facing a Washington team this weekend where the streak could just continue. It would not surprise me if it hits double digits with how well this team is playing right now. And then a really tough test against Arizona at the start of next week. And then it is those Cardinals are back again on the calendar. We just took care of them, so it'll be interesting to see what their response is. But that's going to do it for us here on the Bleav in Mets podcast. We are back again after this Washington series to break everything down for you all. If you want to watch the video version of the show, you can do so over on YouTube. Jack McKessy, McKessy on YouTube. Please rate, review, subscribe, share the show. We would greatly appreciate that as we continue throughout the course of the season. But that is going to do it for us here on this edition of the program. We will talk to you guys after the Washington series. And as always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.